hooked on you, baby, you're golden. Time moves, I never noticed, just can't get enough. Got me wonderstruck.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Make Me a Nerd. I am Mandy Kaplan. I am totally mainstream and ignorant about all things sci-fi and fantasy and LARPing and D&D, and it is my mission to dive into this world and see if I can get some esteemed guests and friends to finally make me a nerd. I'm really trying to figure out what it is about these things that makes people so deeply passionate. And when I asked my beautiful guest today to come on to Make Me a Nerd and join in the mission, he chose something that he is passionate about, and I can't wait to find out why. This, ladies and gentlemen, is podcaster extraordinaire from the True Story FM family, Ocean Murff. Welcome.
Wow. Thank you. That is quite the introduction. I hope to be able to live up to all of that. But
yeah, don't blow it. Seriously,
okay.
Don't blow it.
Okay, I won't.
Don't throw away your shot.
Yes. That would be different. That would get into my passion with musicals.
A passion I share. That's why we can't do that topic.
Yes, exactly. All right.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. And it's very exciting to be here and to talk about a movie that I do love.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to that. And hopefully at the end of it, you will gain at least a greater appreciation for this film, if not the entire universe.
First, can you tell me and the people about yourself? Because you and I don't know each other than from the podcasting world.
So I guess about me, I live in Portland, Oregon. So I'm out on the West Coast.
I'll allow it.
I think that from at least the nerdish side of me, is first and foremost, I have a degree in computer science, and I'm a computer programmer. So I spend many hours sitting in front of a computer writing programs and trying to solve different problems. And so that helped gateway me into things that from an entertainment perspective that from an entertainment perspective, I love action, superhero, and sci-fi movies. I do like other kinds of movies as well, but those are my mainstays. And I discovered in college a real love for comic books. For about 10 years, I seriously collected many different titles. So I did some of the mainstream stuff like, X-Men, Batman, Spider-Man, Spawn.
No, I don't know.
Okay, so
I'll need you to explain all of that.
I'm confident you know.
I've heard of those.
I'm confident you've heard of Batman and Spider-Man. The
Yes.
other ones. So those are the mainstreams. And then I delve deeper into things that are not as common. Like there's a company called Valiant Comics and Image Comics. They made a lot of great titles and great stories that I collected a lot through college. And I think that really comic books were my gateway into looking at cinematic mythology more seriously and enjoying the complexity of those movies.
How many comic books would you say you had at the height of your collecting habit?
At the height of my collecting habit, I had about 4,000 comic books. I still have probably a couple thousand now. Between at the height, some of them they were older and just didn't take care of them. When I first started collecting, I didn't realize I was collecting, so I didn't take care of them. And as any comic book collector will tell you, you have to have them in a wood backing board inside of plastic, inside of a sheet, so they can never be touched. Yeah, so I didn't do that at first, so I lost a few.
Okay.
I lost a few from that, and then other than that, I started giving them away as I've gotten older, and I stopped reading comic books as religiously as I did when I was younger. Anytime a kid was like, "Hey, I like these comic books," I was like, "Here's 100. Go read, go read these and enjoy them."
Hey,
so now I only have about 2,000.
Ocean, I really like $100 bills.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, so I don't have 100 of those. But yeah. So yeah.
It was worth a shot, right?
Okay.
Because knowing what a generous spirit you are.
Absolutely.
If you don't hate me by the end of this podcast, perhaps you'll come back and you'll ask me to read some comic books and we can discuss some of your favorite comic books.
I do not think it is possible for me to hate you at the end of this podcast, so it is a date. We will discuss some comic books. We'll do a couple graphic
You don't
novels.
know what I'm capable of, asshole. Do you?
That is true. And potty mouth aside, which I accept, because I'm not going to judge you. I'm going to let you be you.
Well, then this is going to go very well. Now,
yes.
I didn't know about your love of comic books, but are there other aspects of this nerddom, a term I use with complete reverence?
Mm-hmm.
Are you a gamer? Do you go to conventions? Do you spend hours on Reddit threads
Nice.
talking about conspiracies about Star Trek? I mean, how deep does
Uh,
this go for you?
I think that I'm really more of I'm at not that high of a level of nerddom. I
Okay.
never really got into video games.
Mhm.
I found them really stressful. I just couldn't really get into that. I have not done the conventions. I have done different things as far as like Reddit threads discussing the deep philosophy of different characters, especially with Frank Miller novels. A lot of it with either Sin City or conversations about Batman. So I've done some of that, but
Okay.
from a regular standpoint, I think that I find that whenever I talk to people that I consider the serious nerddoms, they after a while they'll leave me in the dust.
Okay. So you're a medium.
Yes. Oh, yes. Medium.
Okay.
There's much harder core than I am.
All right.
Yeah.
It's interesting as I'm reaching out to different people in my life, I'm learning things I didn't know that they're nerdy about, but I'm also learning that some of my friends, we are nerdy about the same things.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
and my mission isn't just to hear about hobbies, it's really to try to crack this world that of sci-fi fantasy comic books. That's a whole separate thing, not
Yes.
just, well, I'm nerdy about cooking, right? I
Right.
mean,
Right.
so
Exactly. N-
so
Yes.
you, my friend, might be a treasure trove.
Could be. And then if you wanted to switch to something outside of this, the other thing that I clearly am nerdy about is football. And
Well,
and
so am I.
yes, and that's on it's on a level of ridiculousness, quite honestly.
I know, but
So
I mean, maybe there's a spinoff, but I'm a
maybe
passionate fantasy football player and NFL lover and Patriots fan. So that's not a,
okay. So that will not
you
be
ain't
there
going to
anymore.
educate me about football.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, you actually
So
coach, right? I mean, you actually know the game.
yeah, I officiate college football.
Oh, officiate. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so yeah, so I watch all sorts of nerdy things about football, like all these different weird things about what to do in certain situations. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
that as well. But
So before we, after we record, I'm going to get your phone number because during football season, there are many times my husband and I are absolutely baffled by why a play was called a certain way, why a
yes,
ruling went down, and we're just like, "Wait, I thought if you pass that line, then and so
yes,
maybe I could text you and you could say, "Here's what it is."
you absolutely can. I am that
Yes.
text for multiple people.
Oh,
So
good.
yes, yeah, that comes up often.
And this has got another potential way to monetize your expertise.
Yes, it is all about. I officiate for the money. That's what it is. The money
Yeah,
and the fame. Yeah, absolutely.
and the
So,
fame.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So when I said to you, what would you like to talk about on Make Me a Nerd? You you played with a few ideas, but then you pretty wholeheartedly landed on
Rogue One, a Star
yes.
Wars story.
Yes.
Yes.
So I uh in the last episode watched Star Wars A New Hope.
Oh, so
So
then this is in a sense a prequel for you.
which I didn't know until I looked it up on Wikipedia.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and by that I mean I watched the whole damn movie and
Yes.
then I looked it up and found out it was a prequel.
Yes. Yes. It ends right before A New Hope begins.
Apparently, because
Yes.
Leia is at the end of Rogue One, right? She
Correct.
comes
Correct.
in,
Correct.
a weird looking CGI'd Leia, and I was like, "What?" So I had to look it up.
Right. Well, I don't know. I felt the CGI was done fairly well. I mean, it's not Leia because
Right.
but at the same time, I think that as it goes, that was done okay.
Well, while we were mentioning CGI, was Tarkin CGI'd?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Talking with CGI as well. Yeah, they had
I
another
didn't know if
actor.
I was drunk
No,
or
no, you were not. They had another actor
okay.
who played his
You don't
role, and
know
then they
that.
had, and then yes, no, they had another actor that did it. That he looks similar. He looked at least similar to, and they the way they did the CGI was they had him do all of the acting, and he had a mask on his face with a bunch of black dots, and they
Yeah.
would use all these black dots to then put Tarkin's actual face over his performance. But that's how they got it all working. Also, that allowed the other actors to be realistic with their dialogue and actually talking to a person as opposed to a green screen.
But why? Isn't Tarkin human? Why was all that necessary?
Well, because yes, Tarkin is human, but the actor has been dead for a while.
From the original movie. So they
Yes,
were trying
yes,
to create that guy.
correct. Well, yes,
Okay.
because he was
Okay.
old when A New Hope was made. A New Hope came
Correct.
out in I think '76. if I remember correctly. So yeah, so that actor's
70, yeah.
been long. Yeah, the original actor
Oh,
for that has been long dead. So
sure. But
yeah.
I was confused. But you would think they could just cast an actor who looked vaguely like the older guy, right?
You
And
would.
they did.
Yes, they did cast an actor who does look vaguely like the older guy. Like if you've seen I've watched some of the actors on, and you see the guy, and there is some resemblance there. At least especially from a body standpoint, and then his facial shape is very similar as well. But
Hmm.
but it wouldn't look enough that where you would actually be fooled by it. And
Okay.
with all things sci-fi, typically we like a lot of continuity. A word that I'm having a hard time saying right now.
Continuity. Yeah.
Continuity. There it is. That's the word. So, yeah, who like a lot of
You're
continuity.
welcome.
So you couldn't have if you had someone that looked very different from him, that would be distracting from the movie. And in this movie,
Okay.
you wouldn't want to deal with that, partly because he's important as an idea, but not as a character in the movie. The most of the movie is not it's not about him. And so you wouldn't
Right.
want to have that distraction from the rest of the amazingness of this movie getting in the way.
And was Smithers from The Simpsons not available?
Uh, yes,
I'm
yes,
assuming that
yeah.
he might have been fantastic in the role.
Well, I mean, the blue hair in Smithers' contract, he won't dye his hair any other color,
Oh,
and so yeah, so in space they don't have hair dye.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
So I watched all of it. I paid very careful attention.
Okay.
Those of our listeners who have heard me talk about things before, they know I'm guilty of half watching while I'm folding laundry or doing something else. I am not doing that for Make Me a Nerd. I'm really trying to get these things. And I think I had this realization halfway through when I was feeling a little lost by some of the plot,
Okay.
that I was getting too granular. And if I can just pull out
Yes.
and see the whole thing and understand they've got their guns and they're going in and they're on a mission, and I don't need to know, wait, who was the governor of that planet? What planet are they talking about? It's like, if I can stay zoomed out, I can just go on the ride and have fun
Yes.
without my, Rogue One for Dummies book by my side.
Yeah, yes. Rogue One does introduce in the first 15 minutes or so about 4 or 5 other planets that are really only important insofar, for the most part, they're only important just to know that these people are on different planets, but they don't matter for the rest of the story as much, except for there's a couple that matter, and mostly it's just to say we're going from this planet to that one, which would be no different than,
Hmm.
oh, hey, we're starting in New York and we're gonna go to Virginia Beach. You just need to know that that's what it is, and that's really the only significance of it. And so yeah, it is it's good to step back from that and not worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm such a grounded person. Don't laugh. But like New York and Virginia, I know where those are.
Right.
And
Oh
those make
yes, yes,
sense to me.
yes.
But these imaginary things out in outer space, I find myself getting not frustrated, but just questioning, like, what is wrong with me that I'm not keeping track? Should I be knowing who's in charge of who and what planets and why those guys are wearing helmets? And I forgave myself halfway through and I decided I can just hope that they're going to find the dad. I can just go on this journey,
Yes,
right?
yes, and that definitely is the way to enjoy it. That we
Oh,
can go deep into all of that, but that's not really necessary for the enjoyment of the story. Because one of the things too that would it becomes very helpful if you step back from it is that Rogue One at its heart is a heist movie. And
right.
once you kind of step back and go, oh, I'm just watching a heist movie, then you can really enjoy the different pieces and elements and all of the journey of how they're getting there. What are the pieces that people have to move around, or what are the obstacles you have to overcome in order to be successful in the heist?
Yes, it is a heist movie. It had a clear plot.
Yes.
There were other people coming and going, and once I forgave myself and let go of my need to understand every single person and
Right.
every character,
Yes.
it's like, no, I get what's happening here. But I think my fear is we're going to say, oh, hi, let's talk about Rogue One. And it's like, people make that joke like, oh, there's going to be a test afterwards. That's my fear, is like, I would fail this test. If you started asking me questions about the lore and the history and the details, I would have to fake an injury and end the podcast.
Fair enough, and I know that can happen a lot of times with any movie set in the universe, and really part of the reason why I picked this movie for our discussion was because I was under the impression at the time you hadn't seen any Star Wars movie, so having seen A New Hope does shade a few things here and there, but this movie is such that you don't need to know all of that other stuff to enjoy what they're presenting.
Right.
All of the rest of what happens in the Star Wars universe just it isn't important. And so
Right.
what matters is that this is taking place in the same universe, but it is a very different self-contained movie. We could do a
Yes.
quiz on it, and the only thing you need to know about the quiz to get it to pass is what happened in the movie.
So I'd probably get about a 65, 70, which is a
I-
passing grade, Ocean.
Hey,
it is a passing grade.
It is. D's get degrees.
I'm sure you're a great father. Okay. So, so yes, I have seen, as a kid, I saw all 3 movies when they came out.
Okay.
And I loved them as a kid. And then I completely lost my taste for it. When my son was getting into it, I was like, I'm out. I don't care.
When you were a kid, was that the Phantom Menace ones, the ones that came out in the 2000s?
I love you. Yeah, no, it was the Han Solo movie and The Last Jedi.
Yes. The ones that came out like 10 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was the first 3 that came out, 4, 5, and 6.
But you saw them when you were a kid.
When I was a kid.
Did you enjoy them then?
Loved them as a kid.
Okay.
And then I often say my imagination died. My talent or my taste for things that are fantastical just went out the window. However, I don't mind when people burst into song in musicals. That feels totally reasonable to me.
Got it. What
But
if
when
they
they
burst
say
into song
things-
in a sci-fi?
I would love that.
Okay. There
Does that exist?
It does. They mostly exist in television episodes, but yes, that does exist.
Yeah. Okay.
There are musical episodes.
Well, maybe that's something for next time. Because
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I have to say that this one did tell a clear story, and I enjoyed that. When I watched A New Hope last week, and I hope it's not sacrilege, but I discussed it with Kyle Olson, our friend,
Yes.
and it was so bogged down in getting out all the details.
Yeah.
There was so much moisture farm before we got to the good stuff of getting onto the ship and rescuing Leia and all of that stuff. There was just so much that I found it slow. This one didn't have that. This one was like off to the races.
Yes, and Kyle Olson is a perfect example of someone where if we were comparing Star Wars bona fides, he would be a general in this army, and I would be maybe a sergeant at best. He is far deeper into all this
Okay.
lore than I am. He and I have had various conversations about it, and he is definitely a far more advanced person with all this than me.
Okay.
But yes, I think that again, part of why I chose it was to, given the theme of this podcast, my goal, or at least what I believe for my goal in this, is to at least create some small sliver of something that Mandy will enjoy.
Yes.
And to say, hey, this is something that you can at least say, I like this, whether or not you like the entire universe. The thing with the New Hope is effectively New Hope is just part 1 of a 3-part play. And so
Right.
if you watch just that one, then, and without Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, part of the story is missing. And so there's
Mhm.
there's that aspect of it. And so with Rogue One, because it's a self-contained story, and also because it treats the relationships differently. It's one of the other main things I love about the movie is the different relationships between the characters, how they interact, and how it becomes believable, and how their fates are impactful to the story, and
Mhm.
not just a thing of like, oh, well, it's just another sci-fi thing, so who cares what happens to them? They'll be back next movie. And so I think that those aspects make this story much more taut, and that the Star Wars universe as a whole has a lot to it. It is something that I do enjoy, but it's a much deeper commitment than Rogue One.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it starts in a very real place, and it was very much giving me Inglourious Bastards vibes. Am I crazy? Ben Mendelsohn seemed very
Oh, because of where he was living?
Christoph
Yes.
Waltz. No, because he comes in the dad is trying to protect his family
Oh,
and put
oh,
Ben
okay.
Mendelsohn and his soldiers off. And
Yes,
I
yes.
was like, ooh, and I happen to be a nut for Inglorious Bastards. So,
Got it. Okay,
um,
yeah. So when Ben Mendelsohn's he's the actor that's coming to get them, and so yes,
and right, but it grabs you in right away because there's a little
yes,
girl in peril, and
yeah,
who can't care about that and root for her, and you know that immediately I was sucked in because it's like, oh God, is she going to be okay? Is she going to get away? And
right,
that story was very clear right off the bat. Little
yes,
girl, dad was taken away, mom was shot. Oh God, is she? And then she's grown up. I was so confused by. Oh, her name is Jin. I'm sorry, Jin.
yes.
Uh, I'm so confused by who Riz Ahmed was.
Who Riz
He's the
Ahmed
British
is? Oh,
guy.
the pilot.
The
The pilot.
Yeah,
Yeah, Bodhi. Yes. Sorry, you're using the actors Riz
I
Ahmed.
know.
Yes,
Sorry.
Bodhi. Yes. Yeah. So who he is? He was a pilot that was on the same either base that the father was on, that Mads Mikkelsen, I'll use the actor's name, that Mads Mikkelsen was on, and
Uh-huh.
he was a pilot there, and he was just a regular Imperial pilot, nothing special, but he had conversations with Mads Mikkelsen, and Mads had convinced him to take this message out so that the rebellion could learn how to possibly defeat the Death Star.
Okay.
And so his journey is one of he was with the Empire, and then he realized that things were going wrong, and then he wanted to do something about it. I think that it's an understated version of a story that typically happens with the when you think about the Empire as an entity. In that
Uh-huh.
basically he's just a guy that wanted to be in the army, and he wanted to be in the army or be a pilot or the Air Force or whatever, and work, serve his empire or country, if you were, and that over time he realized that his country was, or his empire was doing things that were unconscionable and shouldn't be, it really how not how things should be, and that he has decided that in his small way that he could do something about it, that he's going to do something about it, which is just effectively just carrying this message. The rest of his journey is part of it where, because they wouldn't let him go, he ended up coming along for the rest of the ride. But his whole goal was like, I can get this message to these people, and I can do my small part in ending this tyrannical.
So, am I crazy in that he seemed like the Han Solo and Jin seemed like the Luke, and I'm crazy?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yeah, the
Or
parallels.
is Andor, is he the Han Solo or
Cassian Andor. If this was to have a Han Solo, it could be, but Han Solo was basically he's always been his character's always been kind of like a scoundrel with a heart of gold,
right?
and Cassian Andor is not.
Okay.
He always is what he is. If you look at his arc, he does certain things, right? But like in the beginning, when he kills that guy that's his friend, he does certain
Right.
things and he's remorseful about it, but he keeps on doing it. He doesn't have some hero turn of where something is better. I mean, the best case scenario you can say for him is he didn't kill Jin's dad, in cold
Mhm.
blood, but at the same
Right.
time, it's like that's it for him, as far as, in effect, what he believed as cold-blooded murder was too far, but anything else not so much. And so he's
Do we
not,
know why he kills that friend? Because I was so shocked.
because he has to get away, because
Okay.
the friend told
It's just
him about the Death
survival of the
Star.
fittest.
Exactly. Well, the friend told him about the Death Star, and so he can't let the friend get captured, because then the friend maybe get under torture tells them what he told Cassian. They got to keep it secret, so you have to kill him to get away and go move on.
So as hard as I paid attention, I obviously did miss some details because I was taking really insightful notes like, "Ooh, Scrotum Chin is back."
Scrotum chin.
Scrotum Chin from A New Hope. There's a guy who bumps
Oh,
into Han
it's his
Solo, and
his nose. Oh,
he's
yeah, in the
like the
bar.
whole bottom of his face is like
Okay.
balls.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I think the one I think of is it's his nose that looks like that to me, and I know
No,
exactly who you're talking
no,
about,
the
but it's
nose is the guy who follows them after the bar in A
yeah,
New Hope,
yeah,
and the nose is phallic.
yeah.
This is like the whole chin is a ball sack.
Okay. I did not. I guess I don't remember that character, because the one I have is it's his nose. But yeah, I get what they did have a couple. I mean, the movie had to do some fan service, so there are certain
Oh,
pieces
for
of it
sure.
where it's callbacks to things that, if you watch the rest of the universe, the other episodes, it's a thing to kind of let you know, and
Right.
a wink and a nod to the real
Of
fans. But
course.
yeah, so they had to have some of that, but again, that was just a drive by cameo. Oh, that's that guy, and then we move on to
Right.
Jeddah. At that point, that's on Jeddah. So to Jeddah being destroyed by the Death Star.
So, did you see this in the movie theater when it first came out? Do you remember?
Yes, I saw it 3 times in the theater, and then I've seen it at least 2 or 3 more times at home.
Okay.
So, yes,
So when you said at home, it was very cute the way you said that.
yeah.
So, um, I saw it at home.
Yes,
So when things happened and we saw R2 for the first time, or you said these fan things, did the
yes.
place go nuts
It
when
did
Vader comes
for
out?
Vader, and it did for Vader. It went nuts. I went nuts for Vader.
Yeah.
That was a scene that I did not know that my 9-year-old self really needed to have happen.
Yeah, I got chills.
Yeah, it was the most amazing Darth Vader scene I'd ever seen. Darth Vader scene I'd ever seen up to that point.
Uh-huh.
And so yeah, so that part, yes. There were a couple things like with R2D2 and C3PO. There was some of that. Yes, there's some people cheer, especially on opening night because I saw it on opening night and then I saw it another night. So opening night, yes, that crowd definitely did cheer when they saw R2D2 and C3PO. They actually cheered when they saw the person you were saying ball chin that I think is ball nose, and I'll have to look up his name
Okay.
before we're done. But yeah, that character, and so there's little things like that where you'd have these little pops
Right.
of people like applauding or cheering in an opening night theater.
Mhm.
But by and large, because the story was mostly new, it was it wasn't as raucous as like when they re-released A New Hope, and then I watched it in theaters,
Right.
on midnight on the release night. That was like basically it's like the Rocky Horror Picture Show where
Oh, yeah.
everybody's just screaming along with it, saying lines and
Throwing toilet paper and rice.
things. Well, not exactly toilet paper and rice, but
Well, that's the
yes.
Rocky Horror Picture Show. That's what
Yes,
we do.
that is,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Um, as a young lady, I loved that Jin was such a badass and she was so capable and did not need rescuing. That
Yes.
is thrilling to me. And it sparked an idea for me that I wanted to ask you. Has anyone made a female either Star Wars or a Star Wars akin movie like the Ocean's 8,
Well, this would be from a Star Wars perspective, this would be the female-led one.
which is
So
disappointing because it's one woman surrounded by hundreds and
it's surrounded
hundreds of
by a
men.
bunch, but right, it's surrounded by a bunch of men. Yes, so there hasn't been one where there is a large group of women in at least not in Star Wars. No. So yeah, and I don't know. There's. I'm sure there are it's a multifaceted reasons of why that is.
Mhm.
But as this movie does demonstrate, from a storytelling perspective, you don't necessarily the lead character doesn't have to be a man, and you can have other supporting female actresses in it. But yes, this one would be fairly dearth of that. You didn't have any other significant uh, female roles other than Mon Mothma, who's only there for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So yeah, I see your point. Then yeah, that it was just the one female in the lead,
Right.
but then other than that, not so much. The new trilogy has a similar situation where Rey is the lead character of the new trilogy is female, but then most of the other characters around
And
her.
that's is that Daisy Ridley?
Yes, that's Daisy Ridley. Most of the other characters, except for of course Princess Leia shows up,
Mhm.
most of the other characters are male or Wookiee.
Sure. Or droid.
Yeah, the
Or
droid.
not the
Yes,
droids you're looking for.
absolutely not.
Right.
So yeah.
That there is something to that idea. When I did an episode a few weeks back about anime because it's a world I
Mhm.
really know nothing about. The anime was so begging to be parodied because I'm a huge Spaceballs fan. I know Spaceballs
Yes,
really well, and I think Star
yes.
Wars begs to be parodied. And I was wondering if there's been that for anime. And so that's one idea coming from this podcast. I'm going to write an anime parody. And now I'm going to write a female Star Wars.
The female Star Wars may work. The anime parody, I mean, it is. I'm not a big anime fan,
Mm,
and so there's a lot of anime, especially if you watch it subtitled. No, sorry, subtitled, dubbed. If you
right.
watch it dubbed, it kind of is a parody
I know.
already, right?
Right.
I mean, there's some of it that I enjoy, but I do recognize it, for what it is,
Right.
and so yes, but a completely female led or a group of females
Yeah.
in a Star Wars movie, it definitely would and could work. It just hasn't been done in the movie form.
Hmm.
There have been female-led shows that have in some of those like Ahsoka has multiple females that are part of
Oh,
the lead cast of that as well. But then at the same time, from a movie standpoint, there haven't been that many female like a group of females leading.
okay. Well, It's my
So your story
idea. You can't take it.
is yes. Okay. I'm not going to take it, but I think that you may have to run it by some of the people because there is some examples of it that are out
Oh,
there from a television standpoint.
wait.
Because
From what I hear about
uh,
George Lucas, he's really generous and anybody can just use his stuff.
he should be because the one of the things that I have about Star Wars is I think while I do love it and everything, I think George Lucas is the worst director of the bunch, and so that it's better
Ah.
without him. I think he just hit lightning in a like so. So my hot take of as much as I love Star Wars, I think he hit lightning in a bottle with A New Hope, and then other than that, you should just hand it off to other people, and then it's great because
Okay.
they are making amazing things. Like other when this property is in other people's hands, there are a lot of amazing things.
Oh, I'll text him and maybe he'll just
Yeah, okay,
give it up entirely if you ask. Oh,
okay, yeah. Let me know. He's gonna want to keep the royalty checks, but he might let you just have
sure.
have the IP and do what you want with it.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought it was interesting. I talked to Kyla a little bit about the things I've heard about behind the scenes of making of A New Hope and how
Hmm.
none of the actors really understood what they were doing. And it was, he had a clear
No.
vision, but everyone on that set felt lost. Now,
Yes.
cut to making Rogue One. You get hired to play an extra. You have grown up in probably idolizing this franchise. When the first time they're like, okay, here's your stormtrooper outfit, go over to the Death Star. Can you
Hmm.
imagine the wish fulfillment for all of these actors and these extras and this crew to get to play in this world?
Yes, I can only imagine it, and I think that it would be a thing of where obviously you have to pay the actors, and you should. But any extra on this movie, I bet most of them would have just done it for free.
Yeah,
Just to be a part of this. Yes,
that
it would have been amazing. I'd love to have I'd throw on a stormtrooper outfit and
right,
I'd shoot wide.
right.
I'm all on board with it. And then like fall down and die and all that. It would have been yes. It would be amazing to be an extra in this. Not only just from the wish fulfillment, but just even the story of it and the story of the things that you've seen because they do a lot of times try to build practical sets for these things, and so that you
Yes,
really feel like you're walking on the Millennium Falcon or you're
right.
walking on, you're in these things. So
Yes.
yeah, it would be yes, it would be an amazing thrill ride to do that.
Have you, speaking of thrill rides, Ocean, have you done Rise of the Resistance at Disneyland?
I have I guess I'll have to give another true confession. I've never been to Disneyland.
What? Even
I've
I've been to
only been
Disneyland and I'm a
yeah,
curmudgeon.
Yeah, I've only been to Disney World. I've
Okay.
never been to Disneyland, and when I went to Disney World, it was when I was a kid, 10, 15 years ago. And back then, the Star Wars rides and everything weren't there, so it was all like, I think Back to the Future was the new ride when I was there.
Oh,
So
at
yeah, it was
at
it was that
Disney?
it was
That's
that
at
long ago. Disney.
Universal.
Oh, it is. Oh, it was Disney World. Disney World was all Epcot Center. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of Disney World.
Okay.
So Disney World was Epcot Center and all that. So I've never been to Disneyland. If I ever do go, I absolutely will ride that.
Rise of the Resistance is extraordinary. You are in it. You are it,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all practical. It's all around you. It's holograms. It's real. It's really exciting. And as a person who's like, "Oh yeah, stormtroopers, I don't care." Even I
Mhm.
got chills cuz it's real and
Yes.
it's really really well done. So,
Oh, awesome. So that gives me something to look forward to if I ever make it down to Disneyland.
yes, Disneyland is
But my
completely
kids are
delightful and I don't
yes.
complain at all when I'm there.
Awesome, awesome. Well, my kids are older now, so I don't know that I have the built-in excuse. I could just go because I've heard it's nothing but I've heard great things about it. But
Yeah,
yeah, we just never took the kids. We never took the kids to Disneyland. We went to other
right.
theme parks.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, most
yeah, yeah.
people Disney is another thing I want to tap into because there are those who are Disney files. I mean, it's not just, "Oh, I go to Disneyland once a year." It's such a passion and that counts to me in this world of nerdery that I'm trying to get
Really,
into. Yeah,
that Disney counts.
I feel
I guess
the people who yeah, dress up and go all the
uh-huh.
time and their
Yeah,
house is covered in all Disney. Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's
Okay. Yeah, I just don't I wouldn't count them. I get your argument, but
yeah.
I guess I think of it more as like that just seems more like a fun fantasy thing than the Nerdist. I guess I look at the Nerdist as it's much deeper and more serious than like the Little Mermaid. But if you're just into the Little Mermaid, that's great. That's
Oh,
fun,
but
but I
they're
wouldn't
into
consider
it.
you a nerd.
They're on
Yeah,
Reddit threads, for hours
yeah,
too. So
yeah.
there's
Ours, yeah.
a whole world there. There's a
All right.
whole new world. Yeah.
I'm not going to attempt to accompany that with my horrible singing voice, but yes, I can't. I have a hard time imagining being that into Ariel, but you know what? For those that are, that is great. But I don't consider them nerds.
Hey, this is a judgment-free zone.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. And and maybe that is also, I think you're tapping into something else too about the male dominated part of it, right? That it could be very well that, from a nerd perspective is typically, the from a male perspective as far as not only the majority of the characters are, but also sometimes the framework of the story. It is very much like, we need to save a thing or do a thing, or
Right.
there needs to be an adventure and a fight and everything. It's not, we're not going to resolve our problems in a non-violent manner,
Right.
which would be, and that very much, kind of more of a male dominated thing. And so I think that's also part of what, maybe that's part of why there hasn't been as many, sci-fi movies in general that star majority females, because the idea is that it would just be, you'd have to have a fight or heist or like something like that.
When I write it, I'm not gonna have them
Mhm.
all sitting over rosé and working out their problems. There will be guns and violence and trust me, you have faith.
Okay. All right. I will have faith. Yes. Awesome. Well, you should have them sipping rosé while they're
Yeah, oh,
having
of
while they're
course.
killing people.
Yes.
Yeah, like just like and in a wine glass too that would spill if it shakes too much. They have to keep their balance and get upset with people if they jar them in any way.
You can get the wine glasses that have support. I'll work it out.
Yeah.
I'll
You
talk to
you
props.
you, you can, but I believe that your characters will be so athletically have such high athletic prowess that they'll be able to balance the wine glass while killing many people.
God willing. That's all I can
Yes.
say.
Oh, awesome.
So when we get to the big battle at the end of this movie, I have some questions about why there were stormtroopers. And then there were taupe stormtroopers. And then there were black stormtroopers.
Oh, the ones that were in black?
No, they were taupe. They were in between, like a nice sandy color. There was white that I'm familiar with. Then there's a bunch of taupe ones and then black.
At the end of the day, those are stormtroopers that are meant to be in either sandy or forest areas. They have some of those in the Return of the Jedi where they're
Oh,
kind of like a military camouflage. But the idea that those is much more about the terrain of where they would be potentially deployed. The white is your typical stormtrooper from the past,
they're
and
not outside, so
the
we're not worried about getting dirty. So they can wear the
correct,
white.
correct.
Yep. And then the
Yes, and
black.
they're usually in
Yeah.
space. And yeah, there's not a lot of dirt and dust in
No,
space,
but
not a
they're
lot of
in the ship.
fingerprints. Able to, yeah, exactly. They're in space in the ship, and they're able to keep fingerprints and other smudges off of their uniform, which is very important. You must be
Yes.
while you are imposing tyrannical rule. It is important to also remain fashionable.
I think those stormtroopers are sponsored by Magic Eraser, right? Do you get a little
I,
scuff?
they could be. They could be. I've always honestly, there's been a small part of me that always wanted to be sponsored by like a Kanye West white party. And so and then that's what they all just came from it, and then and then now they're showing up.
Don't you mean Puff
But yeah.
Daddy White Party?
Oh yes, you're right. Is yes, it was the Puff Daddy white party.
Well, I loved this movie had a lot of humor, a lot of throwaway funny moments that I really
Yes.
appreciated. And forgive me, what's the blind guy's name? I
Oh, the blind guy's name was Churin.
Yes.
So yeah,
And he's like,
Chirrut. Sorry, Chirrut Imwe.
Are you kidding me? I'm
Yeah.
blind." I loved that line. I wrote it down with quotes, loved it. But my favorite moment, I don't know if this exists in other movies, but the stormtroopers are walking and it's like they're in an episode of The Office. They're just chatting. They're
Yes.
like, "Oh
Yes.
yeah, what are you doing this weekend?" What the? And it was so
Yeah. They're
funny to me to
talking about a gun that is just being released
yeah.
and coming out. Yeah, yeah, it's a great line. It's a great little thing. Yeah, it is a callback to part of A New Hope.
Okay.
When in A New Hope was the first time it ever showed up. In New Hope, when Ben Kenobi's running around in the Death Star,
Mm.
and those two stormtroopers are talking. Their conversation is nonsensical.
Oh, okay.
And so it's kind of a throwback to that, to
Gotcha.
the idea that stormtroopers would just have random conversation, which they would. They're
Right.
basically just guarding an area, walking around. Of course they're just going to talk about random whatever stuff. So yeah,
Well,
that
hey,
that's what that was.
you got to entertain yourself. So,
Yes.
are there, if you had to sell this movie to me, if I said, I don't know if I want to watch it, what would be
Okay.
the selling points? How would you recruit me to press play on this? All you had to do was tell me and I did it. But
Okay. I guess the way I would do it is one, I would open with it. It's not slow, but two is that this is a sci-fi movie that is at its heart a heist movie,
Mhm.
and it is a way to dip your toe into the Star Wars universe without having to understand and know all the mythology.
Right.
It is a great story that has meaningful relationships between the characters, and that creates where their fates are impactful to you, and it is fun. And other than that, it's a fun movie to watch.
Yeah.
Right. There's part of it where it's that. It's just there is part of it that where it's just the fun. But that would be my selling point, to have that combination, let you dip your toe into this universe without having to know anything about the Skywalker family, for example.
Right. Well, I think it
Yeah.
was an excellent choice. And I appreciated it. I, I think I have a chemical response to A New Hope because of my childhood and knowing those characters, but I
Right.
enjoyed this more than I thought I would once I let go. So now,
Okay.
thank you, because I have a new way of approaching all of this, which is I'm not being quizzed after. I don't have to know. None of my friends are going to say, "Wait, did you understand that 300 years prior?" It's like, no, just enjoy the ride, right?
Yes, very much so, and I am glad you enjoyed it, because this is the best Star Wars movie ever made, and so I'm glad you liked it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, all thoughts expressed by Ocean Murph on Make Me a Nerd uh, are his own thoughts and not the
Exactly.
opinions of this host or True Story FM.
Nice.
Okay.
Well, so wow, I had to be disclaimered.
Yes.
So this is my first time having to be disclaimered.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do my
Okay.
business. That was my business voice. So
Okay.
now that I'm in it, I'm going to say that Make Me a Nerd is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Pete Wright, music by Jane and the Boy. Please reach out on Apple Podcasts. Leave a 5-star review and talk to me. And I will give you shout outs on the show. You can, if there's something you want to make me watch and you want to come on the show, that is a way to reach me. Another way is at Mandy_Kaplan_Clavens on Instagram. And if you have $5 to spare, please join this wonderful world of nerdery at truestoryfm.com/join. Find Make Me a Nerd, click on it, and you'll get extra content and more access to me on Discord and all sorts of fun stuff. And it helps me keep this mission going. That is all my business right there. So I have 2 questions. One is going to take some thought. And I want you to really give it some deep thought. Yeah, but you're not going to answer it first. You're just only going to think. Ocean, if you could be one character, or do you equate yourself with one character from the whole Star Wars universe, who would that character be? Whilst thinking of that, can you tell everybody listening where they can listen to you and what your podcasts are?
The main podcast to listen to me on is a brand new one that I'm releasing now, called The Adrian Moment. And it is a show where I, with my longtime friend Jim, talk about the triangulation of sports, movies, and life. We not only discuss the movie, but also the impact of the sport being portrayed in our lives, and also why sports movies work even if you don't like the sport.
Yeah.
And our first episode just dropped this month. So yeah, so we are now finally out live into the world.
Oh, and was Rocky the first movie you did, or?
No, the first movie we did is a movie called 61, and it is a movie about the 1961 baseball season where Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle are chasing Babe Ruth for home run record.
Yes. I love it.
That was our first
well,
episode,
if you ever do Blades of Glory or The Cutting Edge, toe pick, and you want a guest, I'm all about it.
Okay. Well, I will.
So,
we just might take you up on that, because we are definitely going to do The Cutting Edge at some point.
Okay, I love that movie.
That one is on our list.
Okay, great.
But yeah, so yes, but Blades of Glory, we need to figure out how we do dodgeball first.
Oh, I know dodgeball by heart. Yeah. I'm ready. Yeah. I'm poised and ready.
Okay.
Okay. So Ocean.
Okay.
What character would you be in this world?
So the childhood answer,
Mm-hmm.
and really, Star Wars has so I guess this might be a longer winded answer than you were looking for, but the short answer is Darth Vader.
Ooh.
The yes, the longer winded answer is that it has, that character has always had a special place for me. Even when I was a kid, I liked him better than the heroes, and I enjoyed him a lot better. And then I also had um, the one thing that I did do, which I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Clerks, and this might be more information you want to have. So, but if you ever see the movie, not Clerks, sorry, Chasing Amy.
I did, but
In
years
Chasing
ago,
Amy, yeah. So basically, growing up in Tennessee as a young black kid, and loving Darth Vader, I also found it jarring when they took his helmet off and he wasn't black.
Mm.
Because my entire childhood and everything, I was like, oh, he's the black. And that was honestly, that was part of my identification with him,
Sure.
because I was like, he was a black guy. Because Lando didn't come till the second
Right.
movie. So in the first movie, I only had one brother, and I was like, well, that's Darth Vader. And then when they took his helmet off, I was like, oh, and the thing is, like, it's childhood disconnect, because, like, well, Luke is his kid, so
Mhm.
clearly,
Right.
so,
Right.
but yeah, that was so that was a lot of my attachment to him was that. And also, I mean, it's James Earl Jones's voice, so
You don't get better. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, my first answer would be, for me, Pizza the Hut.
Mhm. Pizza. Nice.
I mean, if anybody has ever seen me around melted
is that
cheese.
Jabba's cousin?
Well,
Yes.
no, did you see Spaceballs?
Oh, I did. Yes. And in that case, then I guess I would have been identifying with Dark Helmet in that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So,
But no, my real answer is I would be R2-D2. Because
really,
he's adorable. And he's always got something to say.
Useful.
Yes.
He is, and he's a bit of a smart aleck.
Yes,
too.
that's
So,
what,
yeah. He is.
Well, Ocean Murff, you are a delight. Everybody check out the Adrian Moment wherever you podcast. Did I get the name right?
You did, and thank you very much for having me. It's been great talking about a movie that I deeply love, and I'm glad that I could be a small part in the overarching story of Mandy's enjoyment of nerd things.
Well, thank you, and I am going to bring you back because now I know you've got other stuff to share.
Sounds great.
See y'all next week.